So here we go, guys. This is officially the final video we'll be doing on the Stones rolling on up, and today we're going to be going 5 years into the future with our Maidstone team to see how they get on with us no longer as manager. Let's get into it and see how the team has done. So guys, welcome back to the Stones rolling on up, and now to the second of our 2 bonus episodes that I'm doing for the series. If of course you missed the finale episode of the Stones rolling on up, where we took part in the playoffs of League One, and I would highly recommend you go back and watch it. It was one hell of a finale. It was end-to-end stuff. It was craziness in the playoffs, and you do not want to miss it, especially because of course there's going to be a few spoilers in this episode, because today we're going to be going 5 years into the future with the team now that I've stepped down. So if you do want to have a look at that finale, there'll be a link right above me for you to use. And of course on Friday as well, guys, I did an overview episode of what happened during our time as the Stones boss. So there will be a link to that as well, kind of in the middle of this video. There'll probably be a link above me, and also there'll be a link to it at the end of the video as well for you to click on. But before I spoil what happened in the finale when we were in the playoffs, guys, again, if you haven't seen it, do use that link to take a look at it. But when we took part in the playoffs, we managed to somehow win them and get ourselves promoted to the championship in our final season as the Maidstone boss. Following on from that just unbelievableness, I have just stepped down from the club, as you can see from the most recent email in the game here that Luke State has stepped down from being the Maidstone manager, etc. So now the team has got to go and find a new manager, and we're now going to go ahead in time to see how Maidstone, with all of their money after we made the big sales in our last season with the club and now being in the championship, what happened? Will they make a lot of new signings? Will they keep kind of the majority of that core of the team? And will they stay in the championship? Will they get relegated? Will they get promoted? We will have to wait and see. But what we will be doing is I'll be going through each of the 5 seasons one by one, and essentially looking at kind of how the team's done, who's in charge, who's left at the team, the transfers, that type of stuff. So I will see you very shortly at the end of season 1, and I will see you there in a few seconds. So here we are now in May 2025, the end of the first season after we have stepped down as the boss of Maidstone United. So let's get into this and see how they've done. So if we go to Maidstone United, they are in the championship still, and it looks like they have just survived. I think it said there they finished 21st. They did indeed. They just about kept themselves up. They had 45 points. 41 was Charlton, who got relegated in 22nd, so they just about held on. So fair play to Maidstone. I mean, it was always going to be a tough ask. I wonder where the game had them predicted. So the game actually had them predicted as finishing 23rd. The game thought they were going to go down, but to be fair to Maidstone, they stayed up. I didn't see who was Maidstone boss actually, so let's have a look. After that debut year with 10 wins, 15 draws and 21 defeats, let's see who was their manager. It was Alan Judge. That's quite interesting, because I think actually at one point I didn't sign Alan Judge, but I had him on trial for a few weeks at the club. So it's quite interesting that he is there. How is he manager? He's not a bad manager actually. He looks pretty decent. Out of interest, did he start with the club? Because it says there 2025, so that makes me think that he actually wasn't the first manager they brought in. Let's have a look at their manager history. So of course there we were there for almost 5 years. We had 2 league wins, 2 cup wins. We had 4 promotions as well. And actually, no, it wasn't Alan Judge who came in first. It was Ashley Williams. I presume that's Swansea City Ashley Williams. Yeah, the former Swansea City player Ashley Williams was their manager for less than half a year. 161 days he managed, and he only won 12% of his games. He won 3 matches from how many is that? 24. So I'm not surprised that they sacked him. And then they brought in Alan Judge about, again, half a year ago almost. And he's come in, he's done okay, he's managed to keep him up, which is the main thing. So fair play to Alan Judge. He's managed to keep my beloved team up and in the championship, which is only going to do wonders for them. How have they done in the transfer window? Is it a lot of transfers they made? Yes, they did. They made an awful lot. So the first 2 names on this board I made before I left. I'd already pre-agreed these deals, so ignore the first 2, Rich Collins and Depuit. Or Depredit, I don't know how you pronounce his name. Lorenzo, let's call him, from Nice. So they signed 14 players. If you include the 2 I signed, they signed 16. 16 players for the squad. Flipping heck. No wonder they struggled. Cool, that must have absolutely killed the team cohesion, bringing in that many players. And they moved a lot of players out as well. I sold Ike Ugbo, and they then loaned out a ton of players as well. I mean, to actually get 155 grand for Ugbo, who I think only had a year left on his deal, probably isn't that bad. But they did spend quite a bit of money. They spent 4.2 million, did Maidstone. They brought in Yusuf Badji from Club Bruges, who is a striker, actually quite a decent striker, actually. Probably not a bad player, especially for 450 grand. 39 games, 14 goals. You certainly can't complain with that from him. Who else did they spend money on? They spent money on this player here, Amin Ben Shaib, I presume how you pronounce it, a Moroccan decent player, not spectacular, but for 130 grand you wouldn't complain. And who else they spent money on? This was the big one, so we'll leave him until the end, Liam Higgins, but they signed Tom Ince. Tom Ince at Maidstone for 800 grand, and he's 33. What are they playing at, signing a 33-year-old for that money? I mean, it's not bad, but pace-wise, Tom Ince is on his way out. So they are definitely not going to be recouping that money, our Maidstone, that's for sure. And then this is the main one, Liam Higgins from Everton for 2.8 mil, rising to 3.5. Please say he's good. And don't just say they just absolutely wasted money on him. Liam Higgins is very, very average. Why have they spent that money on him? I know he's 22, but what the hell they spent that on him for? He had played 40 games, 4 goals, 2 assists for £2.8 million. Wow, they got ripped off. Everton must be laughing their heads off there. But still, I mean, they did enough. They kept themselves up, which is the main thing. So I'm pleased they managed that. Out of interest, what type of formation is Alan Judge playing? Oh, he's playing a narrow 4-3-3. Oh, I don't like that at all. But saying that, there is still quite a few of the old guard still there. You still got Viner, who was with us in the final season. You had Harry Clark and Kurt Perry. You got Cole Palmer still there. Max Power's still there. Even Julie Andrews is still there. I mean, she hasn't played any games, but Julie is still there. Anyone else? You got Tafani still there. Played quite a few games actually. Played 34 games. I mean, he had 3 goals though. You got Abua is still there. Apparently he's leaving. He's going to Mulder. So he's on his way out. Maddie Smith is still there. Swanson, Lewis Ward, Craig Thorpe. So there's still quite a lot of our former team are still there. So that's still quite good to see. But the team stayed up. Out of interest, how they do in the Cups. They do okay. They lost in the EFL Cup first round. And they lost in the FA Cup first round. So now they were terrible in the Cups. So not a brilliant season. But the main objective of not getting relegated, they achieved. So really you'd say that's probably a success for a newly promoted side. But it's good to see after year 1, the club didn't go down and they can have another year in the Championship. So, because of that, we will go forward to the next season, so season 2, and see how they get on now they're going to be in their second season in Championship. I will see you there, guys, in a few seconds. So, we're now here for the second season, so year 2, it's 2026 now, so Maidstone's second season in the Championship. So let's see if Alan Judge is number 1 still boss, and have the side stayed up in the Championship for another season. So I see the Championship is available to click down here, so let's go straight to it. Obviously we're going straight to the playoffs. Maidstone aren't in that, unfortunately, it would seem, but let's go to the league table. And Maidstone have stayed up for a second season. They've gone up a position. They've got a few more points than last year. They had 45 last season. They're now managed to get 53, and they finished there in 20th place. So to be honest, you'd say another decent season, considering the fact Maidstone probably have got one of the smallest budgets and so on in that division. So I would certainly be happy with them just staying up and keeping themselves in the league. Again, let's have a look where they were predicted to finish. The game again had them as a relegation team. They were down there in 22nd, so fair play to them. They managed to finish 2 positions above where the game thought they would do, so that is not bad. Let's click on them. Is it Alan Judge still? No, it is not. It's now Gary Monk. So again, another manager in charge. Out of interest, was Alan Judge sacked or did he leave of his own accord? Let's go into the managers. Alan Judge, no, he chose to leave, so he wasn't sacked by the club. So that's probably a good thing, at least for him. Alan Judge, where is he now? He's now the Huddersfield Town boss, so fair play to Alan. Now, of course, Gary Monk has been in for roughly half a year. He's come in, he's done okay by looks of it. He's won 8 games of a possible 27, so not bad there from him. In terms of the transfers, let's see what has been done by both Alan Judge and Gary Monk. So a lot less players have come in this season, a lot of loan players it would seem, especially from Southampton, who I presume must still be the team's affiliate club, because when I was manager in our final season, we got Southampton as our affiliate team, and it looks like they still are. And they've got a lot of players on loan. They've got a free signing as well. Who's this Antonio? He's just a youngster from Italy. But other than that, they only spent money on one player. They sold a couple of players. They sold Richard Collins, who was the youngster I signed just before I left. He was a young trainee from Manchester United, I believe. Yeah, and looks like they've sold him on straight away, so not a bad bit of business there from the Maidstone team. Abua, who we already knew was leaving, he went out on a free transfer to Mulder. And Mark Bowler, who I presume must have been a new signing made by the club, so I don't recognise his name. No, he came in last season. Yeah, he has left as well. So 2 new signings have gone out. Other than that, it's pretty much the same team. But the only money they spent money on was this guy whose name is, I have absolutely no idea. Vykintas Slivka, maybe? I've got no idea. He sounds Eastern European. I'm going to say probably Estonian or Latvian or Lithuanian or something. He sounds like he's from that area. Let's click on his name. Yeah, he's a Lithuanian player. Vykintas here. And he's a 31-year-old, and they've paid a lot of money for another older player. I don't really understand what Maidstone's obsession is with buying older players, considering the fact that when I was there as manager, the board had the big thing of always wanting young players being signed in. So I don't really understand what the new managers are doing, but they seem to like paying out a lot of money for older players. But he's played 32 games, apparently. He looks like a decent player. He looks better than what Tom Ince was, but still not really convinced that that's a decent signing for 1.8 mil. Probably not a long-term signing anyway. But again, they've managed to keep themselves up, which is the main thing. Tactically, how are they playing now under Gary Monk? They're playing a bit more of a conventional tactic, a 4-2-3-1, which is good to see. And there's still a lot of former players still there. They've still got Julie Andrews, who's even played 6 games this season randomly. I can't understand how she's still getting in the team. You've still got Zach Viner, you've still got Harry Clark and Craig Thorpe, which is good. You've got Cole Palmer is still floating in around the team. You've got the signing that I made just before I left, Lorenzo de Puedit is still there as well. You've got Zach Swanson, you've got Tafani, he's played 51 games. Wow, he's played a hell of a lot of games, Tafani. He still doesn't look overly brilliant, but he's played a lot of games. He's scored a few, got a few assists, so fair play to Tafani. I'm glad to see he's doing quite well for the club. Kurt Perry's still there. And even Lewis Ward is still at the team as well. So still a lot of former players still floating around, which is good to see. A lot of new faces in there as well, but still kind of the main core of our former group is still at the club. But that is kind of the end of Season 2 here. Again, it's good to see that the team stayed up. Now, having had 2 seasons in the Championship, can they build on that and try and push themselves further up the table? Because both years they've been quite low down. Can they maybe invest a bit of money now and push themselves up? Let's go forward to Season 3, so I will see you there at that season in a few seconds. So we're now here in Season 3, of course now the 3rd season that Maidstone have had in the Championship. We've just seen in the past 2 that Maidstone have just about by the skin of their teeth kept them up 2 years in a row. Can now that 3rd season in the league, can they push themselves a little bit higher? I don't know if Gary Monk will still be in charge because he was the last manager to be in charge of the team. So let's go to the Championship and let's see how they're doing. So they're not in the playoff final, sadly. Let's put it back to the league table instead. And actually, wow, Maidstone are up there in 9th place in the Championship. They finished 3 points off of the playoffs. Oh, that's gutting. They did so well to get themselves up that high. And I've just seen on the right here, Cole Palmer, our former player Cole Palmer, is up there on the assist table with 13. He's in 2nd place. And I've also just seen Harry Clark, our former centre-back, who I was never overly keen on, has got the 2nd most man of the matches of all the players in the league. Fair play to the team. Looks like they've had a really good year. So in terms of the preview, how were they predicted to come? They were again predicted to be right down the bottom league, down there in 21st place, and they finished up in 9th. So whoever the hell the manager is, fair play to him. Let's have a look at the team, and it still is Gary Monk. So he has done one hell of a fantastic job at the team, that's for sure. I can't believe that they finished, 12 positions above where the game expected them to finish. And if we only 3 points off the playoffs, that is pretty astounding as well. In terms of transfers, did they spend a lot or did they not spend that much? Not overly, they spent less than what they sold. They sold £1.8 million worth of players. They sold Brad Collins, who was a goalkeeper, I believe, that they brought in Yeah, another goalkeeper. So they sold him to LAFC for 1.4 mil, which is where most of that money's come from. And they sold Zach Swanson and Heinz Ketchup. Oh, that's a shame. Well, I suppose it's not that kind of surprising that Ketchup moved on. He wasn't particularly brilliant. But Zach Swanson's gone. He's gone to Scotland for 200 grand. But it looks like they've brought in a couple of players for some money. They brought in a player from Drogheda United from Ireland for £900. Josh Murphy, how does he look? He's actually pretty decent. He's only 17. Oh, he could be quite a good player, actually, this guy. I mean, physically, he's not brilliant, but mentally and even technically, as like a kind of a ball-winning type of midfielder, he could be really, really good. So for 900 quid, fair play to the Maidstone scouts for finding him. They've then signed Trevor Clark from Tranmere for 300 grand. So let's have a look at him. A very decent left-back, could maybe finally resolve the issue that the club has permanently had at left-back. A very good-looking player, got a good set of attributes. I mean, he's only 5'5", but still a decent signing nonetheless. And especially for 300 grand, that's pretty good. And then they signed a player for £500,000 from Lille, Joel Ngoya, I presume how you pronounce it. Defensive midfielder, central midfielder, looks very decent. So you'd certainly say for £500,000, that's not a bad player. So quite a good season, it would seem, in terms of transfers for the club. They've made money and they've got themselves massively up the league. In terms of their tactics, how are they playing under Monk? They're still playing that 4-2-3 when he was playing last season. Lewis Ward is still in net. Viner, Perry, Clark are still there. Palmer's still there, of course, as we've already seen. Tafani is still there. He's playing out and out as a right winger, it would seem, and he's played a lot of games still. So, again, very good signs that a lot of our former players are still floating in and around in that Championship Maidstone squad, which is really quite cool to see, especially some of the youngsters. Cole Palmer being a prime example. How is he looking now? He's looking very, very decent, so I'm not that surprised that he's doing as well as he has. He's played over 200 league games for the club now as well, which is pretty astounding. Still, though, we've got 2 more seasons to go, and if things go as they have been, because in the fact that the team has been kind of progressing and they've managed to get themselves up to 9th place, will we see them in a playoff battle next season, so season 4? Let's go to that 4th season and see quite what happens. So I'll see you there in a few seconds, guys. So here we are now, season 4. So after the brilliant end to season 3, where Gary Monk's Maidstone finished up in 9th, have they progressed? Let's have a look at the Championship, and oh dear, I have just spotted, as I'm about to click it, that Maidstone is listed down the bottom here. So is that because Monk's been poached, or is that because the team's been really, really poor? Let's have a look. I'm hoping they haven't been relegated because of how good of a season they had last year. Let's have a look at it. We're not in the playoff final, and league table wise, oh dear, they're down in 19th place. So I'm guessing Monk's been sacked. Not particularly brilliant there from the lads, considering the fact they were up in 9th last year. They had, what, 69 points? They finished down with only 57 this year. How were they predicted to finish? So Maidstone were predicted to finish down in 23rd. So it looks like they had a very poor year. They did at least keep themselves up and didn't go down. But the Maidstone team have no manager at the moment. We've already seen that they were looking for a new manager. And when did he get sacked? So, in fact, Monk left in November. So they had an interim manager who, Will Atkinson, I think he may have been my assistant while I was actually manager at the club, Will Atkinson. But Monk got sacked in November, obviously had a very poor start to the season. And then Will Atkinson came in for about half of the year and he kind of kept the club up, and that was about it. Won 9 games out of a possible 27, so not brilliant, but he at least kept them up, which is the main thing. I'm pretty sure he was my assistant. Yes, he was. The assistant from 2023, so yeah, for our final season or so, he was my assistant manager. Now, in terms of transfers, how has the club done? They spent 1.2 million. They didn't sell anybody, but they did spend a bit of cash. They signed Your Ohine, or I think I've got no idea really how you pronounce that. Ohine from Oxford City for 60 grand. And a decent young centre-back, not spectacular, but a 20-year-old might be able to develop a little bit, possibly. Not a bad little youngster, to be honest. And then they've signed a couple of other players for some money. They've got Jason N. Galby Legage. Let's just call him Jason. I'm not even going to try and say that again. Jason here from Cairns. And another decent centre-back. Doesn't look particularly amazing, though. Let's be honest. And for 60 grand, I suppose that's not that bad. But then they've got Amadou Traore from Strasbourg here for 300 grand. A decent winger. Again, not spectacular. Compared to the signings they brought in last year and the previous years, these are pretty mediocre, these players, if I'm being totally honest. And then Alexandros Katranis from Genk for 700 grand. So he is a left back, and I mean, I wouldn't say he's 700 grand's worth, considering the fact that they signed a left back last season who looked better than this. I'm surprised really, but I mean, apparently he's worth £4 million, so I suppose they could try and sell him at least. But again, not overly brilliant the signing, so I can kind of see why they may have struggled. In terms of how they're playing tactically, they're going with a flat 4-4-2. Of course, they haven't actually got a manager at the moment, so this may have been what Will Atkinson, the former interim manager, was playing before he got sacked. But looks like there's still a lot of former players are still there. Viner, Perry and Thorpe are all still there, all playing a lot of games, which is good to see. Cole Palmer's still in that team as well, which is good. Harry Clark's still there. Tafani's still there. So again, a lot of players there. Even Lewis Ward, although apparently he is listed, so maybe this might be his last season with the club. But there's still a lot of the core still there. But it doesn't look particularly brilliant, the fact they struggle so bad. Maybe if they get another manager in after they've had an interim for so long, it could help them out come on for the last season. But we have one more year to go. So in that final season, are we going to see Maidstone get themselves promoted maybe? Are we going to see themselves get relegated? Or are they going to keep themselves in the Championship for the 5th season? Let's take a look at that final year, guys. So I'll see you there in a few seconds. So here we are, guys. It's now the final season of our 5 years into the future video here with Maidstone. It's now May 2029, the end of that 5th season. And I can't see Maidstone listed on here, so maybe that's a good sign, maybe it's not. But of course, they were very close to getting themselves relegated after a very good season, and then last season, season 4, was dreadful. Have they done any better, or have they done any worse? The Championship, in terms of the playoff final, they are not in the final, so they haven't gone up via the playoffs. League table, how have they done? Wow, they have been so close to getting themselves relegated. What the hell have they done this season? They finished down in 21st, which they haven't finished as poorly as that since season 1, and they just stayed up by a point. Their goal difference was dreadful as well, so that is by the skin of their teeth. That is so close. But I can't understand. They've got a player up here in the strikers leaderboard for goals scored. He scored 22 goals across the season, and yet they finished down in 21st. How the hell were they that bad defensively? And I don't know. No idea how they've done that poorly. But I mean, at least they kept themselves in the league. But I mean, that is so poor. It really is. Let's have a look at the season preview. Where were they expected to finish? They were expected to come rock bottom. So I'll actually give them some credit then, because they at least didn't go down despite being reckoned to be finishing down in 24th place. Let's have a look at who their manager is. So, of course, at the end of the last season, the interim boss, Will Atkinson, our former assistant manager while we were manager at the club, he had a spell as being interim. He'd been sacked after not doing particularly well. Looks like they brought in this Ryan Gary guy. I don't know who he is. Who is he formerly? He's never actually managed a club. In fact, he's not been at a club for 10 years, and Maidstone decided they'd hire him. So, interesting decision. Never heard of him before, and it's his first ever full-time managerial job, but he kept the team up nonetheless. Was he the only one that came in? He was. He's been there for almost a year at the club, so he at least kept the team up, which is the main thing. How have they done in terms of transfers? They've not spent a huge amount. I do wonder if their money is kind of running out a little bit at this point, of course, being in season 5 now at the club. They sold a bit. They managed to sell the striker that they sold in actually the first season, Yusuf Badji. I wonder if that's why they struggled so poorly, because I know he did score a lot of goals. You can see he scored 56 over 167 games, so they probably did struggle not having him in the team. But I suppose they got 2 mil for him, so that's not bad. They signed a couple of players. They signed this Jakub Novotny from York. I presume he's Czech. Yeah, he is. Another youngster, probably didn't play a huge amount of games for them. This is a 17-year-old, but 50 grand, probably not bad. They signed Jax Christoph from Sochaux for 59k. Again, I'm presuming another youngster. Yeah, it doesn't look particularly brilliant, does he? And who is the final player? They actually spent quite a bit of money, almost just over $500,000 on this player, Eskilid Dahl from Silkeborg, which I think is a Norwegian team. And he looks decent. Actually, might be as he's Danish. I wonder if Silkeborg is a Danish team. Yeah, they are Danish, so apologies for any Silkeborg fans. But yeah, Eskilid here looks like a decent player, a decent left winger. And I suppose for $500,000 probably isn't that bad. When I say that mentally, he's very poor. But I suppose physically he's pretty good. So you kind of take it either way. But again, this season and the previous season, the signings haven't looked that brilliant, so I can kind of see why they've struggled so poorly. How has Ryan Gary, their new manager, been playing? He's been playing a 4-2-3-1, a bit like how Gary Monk played the side when he was manager. And I'm surprised, actually, that Lewis Ward is still the first choice, because last season when we looked, he was listed as available for transfer, but he's still here, he's still playing. He must have played a hell of a lot of games by now. How many games has he played for the club? 183 times he's played for the team, and his contract is actually expiring at the moment, so it could well be his last season here. Zach Viner's still there, Kurt Perry's still there, Craig Thorpe is still there, so that's 3 of the back 5 we used to play. You got Cole Palmer still there as well, who's had another season where he's played a lot of games. Harry Clark is still there, even Kirk Thompson, the young striker who'd never really played for me. And that's basically it from the list there. I can't see any other players on there, but it's still quite a good core, especially defensively, and it's quite nice to see that many of my former players are still at the team even 5 years after I have left. And at least it's good to see that the team hasn't been relegated. I mean, they've almost done it a couple of times this season, especially being 1 point away, but it's good to see that they didn't get relegated. Nonetheless though, guys, that just about wraps up this season here as well, and our 5 years into the future video here today. So guys, that just about wraps up this episode here today, and as a result, the Stones rolling on up. This, of course, as I've already said in this episode, is the final of the bonus episodes, and as such, the Stones series as a whole. I can't really believe the fact that this is now, of course, the equivalent of about episode 58. It's been so many episodes we've gone through, and we've seen some crazy things occur while we've been at Maidstone and while we've gone into the future here in this episode today. I mean, I'm very pleased to see that the team managed to keep themselves up in the Championship. That is really good to know that after all of our hard work, the AI hasn't just thrown it all away, which at least makes me feel quite good about the squad I'd built previously, and the fact there's so many of those former team members still floating in and around the Maidstone squad now 5 years later. That is really, really good. Now, I will mention, by the way, guys, that over the course of this week, there will be a brand new channel update video that comes out. Well, I'll just be running through essentially everything that's going to be going on with FM21, especially with the beta and kind of my schedule early on, as well as possibly mentioning about Twitch. So as I say, keep an eye out for that. It will probably come out roughly, say, Thursday or Friday, towards the end of this week anyway. So that will be a video to look out for. But guys, I really hope you have enjoyed this video here today, and if you have, please do chuck a like on it. It really does help the channel out, and of course let me know down in the comment section below who your favourite player was from the save, and are you surprised that the Maidstone team kept themselves up in the Championship? If I'm totally honest, I am a little bit. I thought they would go down, especially quite early on. I didn't think they'd manage to keep themselves up, but I'm impressed with the AI. They didn't completely screw it up. Also though guys, if you are looking forward to seeing any more of my content, such as with FM21 and my upcoming FM21 beat saving Manchester United, and any of my experiments, I have a couple of them planned already for FM21, then do make sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with everything here on LS Plays FM. But guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you again next time.